started April 2013, so 2 years ago. And it is basically partnership. A partnership of pan-European universities working together on MOOCs with specific features. And therefore, related to those features, the quality dimension. So before going into the quality dimension, I just want to introduce OpenUpEd and those features. And the features are related to what my presentation this morning was. Open education is about removing barriers to learners. Perhaps there are other barriers, etc., but the focus is barriers to learners. And just my statement here is that MOOCs should be designed such that unnecessary barriers, there are necessary barriers, okay, unnecessary barriers to learning are removed while aiming to provide students with a reasonable chance for success. That's also related to completion rate, low completion rate in MOOCs, etc. So there are two aspects. The barriers must be removed not only at entry but also along the learning path. So the entry barriers, we know the financial barriers, your diploma, etc. But also they should have incentives to make progress and succeed in their learning efforts. So if you can say, are MOOCs removing a barrier? What kind of barriers? The economic, financial barrier. Yes, they are for free, so they are removing the barrier. The entry requirements, yes, but not all MOOC providers. Coursera, for example, you need to be 16 years and older and not living in a sanctioned country of the United States, because then you cannot follow a MOOC. So it's not all. Location. Yes, but more for a formal exam that counts for a credit, a formal ECTS credit, you need to go for an exam center for authentication, etc. So it's not completely removing of the barrier location. Scheduling, so the schedule, most MOOCs you need to start now, have a schedule for 6 weeks and you need to complete after 6 weeks. So it's not freedom of schedule. There are some self-paced MOOCs. And even Coursera now has some 4 MOOCs, or even more now, who are self-paced. The barrier on network connectivity, no, you need to have an internet connection. And that's a problem when you have MOOCs in Africa or the BRIC countries where the need for higher education is high. You need to have an internet connection. We are experimenting with some MOOCs where you can download the content and just have a network connectivity and then upload your task later on. So you don't need to be online every time. There's another barrier that's related to the skills, the digital literacy. Yes, but you have to offer also courses that are related to the digital skills, because you need to have digital skills to follow a MOOC. Then there's the accessibility over time. What I mean is then if you look at a MOOC, it's only accessible during the 6 weeks of the MOOC. You can only access the content, the video lectures, during the 6 weeks. There are some MOOCs that are opening up when you have registered, and in the beginning you can also look at the material afterwards. But you need to register, etc. Accessibility to all is problematic. You need to not living in a sanctioned country, but also the language. You need to understand the language, etc. So it's not accessibility to all. And therefore, what Darco is saying, we need to work in Europe also on automatic translation, on other aspects that improve the accessibility. Cultural dimension, that's a huge problem. Most MOOCs are Western dominated, and therefore the examples and culture is dominated by the Western countries. Legal aspects, most MOOCs you cannot reuse material, so the open licensing aspect is not there. And the quality, yes, but that are very different dimensions of quality, and edX has different quality dimensions and criteria than Coursera, etc. So these are all barriers that MOOCs might remove, but are not. And therefore OpenUpEd is focusing on those barriers. Incentives, very important, that a MOOC should be satisfactory. The satisfaction of the students. And that's also with completion rate. It's a constant challenge for motivation, but you have to understand that in a MOOC it's non-formal learning. So the completion rate is not related to did they complete the whole course, all the tasks and have a certificate. No, it's by the intention and even the changing intention of the participants. Because it's non-formal, it's for free, people register, get enrolled in the MOOC, they'll only do task 4, 5, 7 and want the badge of that, and even might change their interest if they learn something about the course. So that's more where artificial intelligence is coming in. The intention and the motivation of participants in MOOCs will change during the MOOC itself, because they get more interested in more other topics, etc. So therefore you cannot define satisfaction by the standard way we do in formal education. And therefore also with completion, you cannot define completion rate on a standardized way. And learners want recognition options. Like Antonio was saying, recognition option on different kind of credits. You need to have students who want to completed a MOOC, they want recognition options. And the value of those recognition options. So therefore OpenUpEd, contributing to the opening up of education by removing barriers and offering incentives, and shares the values of the society in Europe, for example, on equity, diversity, quality and autonomy. That are the values that are there. And therefore we have learner-centered approach, including self-study and self-paced MOOCs, high quality and a quality dimension, diversity in language and culture. So not one language, one culture related MOOC. Public domain and partly decentralized. We did have that discussion this morning. Not a centralized platform with only English or etc. Decentralized, where the institution itself is in control. Launched 25 of April 2013, and it's a pan-European initiative. I already mentioned that. And essentially it's not a platform. It's not a MOOC platform like Coursera. So we are in different playing fields. Coursera offering a platform, we are offering a partnership on certain features, shared features on MOOCs. And we now, it's increased to 198 in 14 different languages, and about 100 will follow shortly. And with more than 100 we have the option for a formal exam. Like Antonio was mentioning, unbundling is not only the unbundling of services from the institutional point of view, but also the freedom to choose by the participant. So with the recognition options, the student itself may choose, I'm interested in a badge or a certificate of completion or a real certificate. So the choice is with the participant and not also offered only by the institution. So the unbundling is also the freedom of choice for the learners. So therefore in most OpenUpEd partners we say, don't only offer a badge or a certificate of completion, but let the learner or participant of a MOOC choose between one or the other. When I say 100 is a formal exam, there's a twist in the tail. You need to, for most of the time, go to a formal exam center. So if our Italian partner offers a MOOC, you can have a certificate of completion. If you want a formal exam, you need to travel to one of their centers in Italy. And then, all twist in the tail, is that it's only recognized in their formal bachelor or master degree. So no credit transfer yet. You only get an ECTS credit. And it's only valuable in their own bachelor or master degree. So there's a lot of work to do there for credit transfer as well. In France even, you can only have an ECTS credit by law if you are enrolled as a student in an accredited university in France. So they offer a MOOC in France with the possibility to have an ECTS credit. You have to go to a center, but you also have to be enrolled as a student to get that. So it's not that easy to say credit transfer and credit. It's a lot of decisions there. Now these are the partners, not one from Slovenia, but that will be at the end of this year, I hope, or even next year. So this year, at the end of 2016, there will be from Slovenia. So planning to join is there. And we have 10 more requests for partnerships. Again, branding on commonality, on 8 features. There's an admission procedure, and it's called related to the quality label, OpenUpEd. And it is the first public quality label for MOOCs. It was already published almost a year ago. And the partnership is on continuous monitoring, on joint research, etc. So it's not only decentralized, a lot of things in the partnership are centralized. On quality, on the branding, on the continuous monitoring between the participants, and on research and questionnaires, etc. So it's a little bit different than Coursera. It's not a platform, it's a partnership, etc. So that's the thing. MOOCs as part of the institutional offer, with some quality procedures internal at the institution, and see it also as a course. You can have a different kind of perception and definition of MOOCs, then you are on a different playing field. Still MOOCs, but that's what Anthony is saying, what's a MOOC, what's not a MOOC. We're saying this is a MOOC, this is part of institutional offer, etc. Sorry, long answer, but yeah. But that's the bridge to quality dimension as well. Quality is not a goal. Quality is to support the mechanisms you are doing and you want to reach to. This quality label is published in, sorry for that, it's at the end. It's published in different journals as well. So, why bother with quality? I already mentioned that, but then again, some people are angry, some people are very happy with a MOOC course. So, what are the criteria when they are happy and not happy? So, what kind of perspectives are there in quality? Is the student perspective? Perhaps we should rephrase it and not use students, participants. So there will be a new version of the quality label where we don't say students, but participants. The employees' perspective, and also related to that, the recognition of the content and skills. So what is the quality they are learning? The author perspective, the institution perspective, and the funder perspective. And also the quality agencies related aspect. So there are many dimensions in quality we need to take into account. Why bother? Completion rate, I already told what's the completion rate, when did you complete the MOOC, etc. Large numbers, but still many learners are completing. Different calls, personal calls that are there. And yeah, the main problem is if only 10% is completing a MOOC course, what will the 90% do? Will they follow another MOOC? Or are they happy with just the video they watched or the task they performed? Or they want a complete course? So, just an anecdote. One of my next blog is about how many MOOCs do we need worldwide to educate all the people in the world to a master degree. And now say a MOOC is about 3 ETTS. So make an educated guess. How many MOOCs do we need worldwide in all the languages for a master degree in all topics? Less than 100,000. And we already have 5,000. So in our increase, I say in 10 years we have so many MOOCs we can educate all the people. But if only 10% is completing, the 90% who have done the first MOOC will never go to the second, perhaps the second, will never go to the third MOOC. So completion rate matters. Even if we have 100,000 MOOCs and we can educate all the people in the world on a master degree.
I don't think this is a problem, the completion of MOOCs, because Usually people just take some bits out of a MOOC.
Yeah.
Some topics they find interesting.
Yes.
They are not interested in the whole course, but just...
Yeah, and that's what the unbundling is about. And not also the unbundling, the freedom to choose as a participant. I only want the badge of task 9 and task 11 because I was interested in those two tasks. Or I'm interested in certificate of completion because my employee doesn't want an ECTS certificate, want to pay for it, just the certificate of completion. So it's the freedom that also have to choose as a participant. So I don't think it's a problem, but if you want to count MOOCs as part of a master degree, and you want to have a master degree, that's a different story. Yeah. So if you look at the MOOC is created, and there is an internal checking, and there is, when the MOOC is there, the peer review and the checking on that side. What we're doing with OpenUpEd is also providing the checking mechanisms before it is published. Then the MOOC itself is used, and you have the user recommendations to improve the MOOCs. So MOOCs are not one event, they are used again and improved, etc. This is the website of OpenUpEd. So when I talked about removing the barriers for learners, we identified the following features that are important. So the openness to learners, that is related to the barriers. The digital openness, it has to be free and an open license. It has to be a learner-centered approach. Learner-centered approach? Do you have a professor-centered approach? Yes. The present MOOCs are, I'm a professor, you tape me on video, yeah, and broadcast me, and then all the people can look at it. That is a broadcasting point of view, not a learner-centered point of view. And with other kind of didactics, you can have a more learner-centered approach. Independent learning, that's also a very difficult term, because at the end, we want all people to have that they are independent learning, self-based learning, that they are explorative by themselves. But even for young students starting in an academic career, or even at a master or a bachelor, they have to learn to be independent learning. So it's not yes or no, but we need to facilitate the participants and students to do that. Media supported interaction. I don't say video, it's the interaction that's media supported. Intelligent tests are examples for that with artificial intelligence. But it's more than only video. The recognition options I already mentioned. The quality focus is about their internal and external quality dimensions. And they have to support the diversity aspect. Not only in language, but also in cultures and examples, etc. Label, when you can become partner, partners will be higher education institutions. They meet the national quality assurance and accreditation criteria, and they have an internal quality process for their own MOOC proposal. The OpenUp quality label is a kind of self-assessment, it's a review, and it's based on benchmarks on the OpenUpEd features. By benchmarking, I don't mean benchmarking as an absolute criteria. By benchmarking, I mean benchmarking to each other, inviting an institution to have a development plan on opening up education. So, then you can say that the quality label is not absolute but relative. By relative, I mean it's benchmarking to each other, inviting institutions and professors to continuous working on opening up education and removing the barriers and improving the incentives for learners, etc. So we have a set of minimum criteria institutions have to apply to, but it's most of the time used as a development tool. And the higher education institution itself evaluates and monitors its MOOCs within the partnership of OpenUpEd. In this context, we see MOOCs as part of online education, as online offering of course, and therefore we say it's the criteria of an online course apply to MOOCs as well. And for that reason, we use the existence, already the e-excellence label as the basic part for the OpenUpEd MOOC label. What's the e-excellence label? The e-excellence label is a label used for e-learning, for online courses, as part of a bachelor or master degree offering of an institution. There are in Europe 3 labels: unique, ECB, and e-excellence. We didn't talk about it today, so we could also present those 3 labels, what they are doing. Those 3 labels are based for the institutions offering online courses and e-learning. And what kind of quality dimensions should be there for those online offering? What we did is, based on those online offering, made an OpenUpEd label. But that's on the assumption that the MOOC is part of the online offering. It has more non-formal dimensions than formal dimensions, but some criteria also apply to MOOCs. But that's an opinion or a perception on MOOCs. You can have a different perception on MOOCs. Our perception is it's part of the regular offering. Yes? So I won't talk about e-excellence. There's a website on e-excellence, as there is a website on unique still, and on ECB Sec. Yeah. Pretty much all those labels, so also e-excellence, unique, and also the OpenUpEd quality label, has some criteria grouped in management, strategic management, curriculum design, course delivery, start support, and student support. So that are the quality dimensions related to those groups. Of course, when you have an online course as part of a curriculum, the curriculum design is important. But in a MOOC, it doesn't have to be part of a curriculum. So the curriculum design is very small part, or even can be 0 if it's not part of a curriculum. But on the other hand, if the MOOC is also recognized in the bachelor or in a master, it has to be some relation to the curriculum design. So that's on an institutional level. And we have on the OpenUpEd label also the dimension on the course level. And that has to be checked for each course, each MOOC. And it has 11 statements. So in total there are 23 statements. If you look at the original e-excellence label, it has 34 criteria benchmarks. So I can go now into all those statements. They are essentially benchmark and used for self-assessment and then a review example. So again, benchmark intended to as an improvement tool, to enhance quality, to identify in the benchmarking with the self-assessment and review, to identify weakness and strengths, and to have an action plan, a roadmap for improvement. So the quality label itself says nothing you have to do in all 32 benchmarks you have to do very well. No, it's about identifying where are the priorities of your institution, where are the strengths and weaknesses, and then to define an action plan. So to become a partner of OpenUpEd, we only want to check where are you now and how serious are you in opening up your education by MOOCs. So it's not stated every institution has to have that, every benchmark and every feature. Again, diversity. There is not one strategy in opening up education. Like the barriers for removing barriers for learners, it's not related to all barriers. It depends on the institutional strategy, it depends on your country where you're living in, the culture, etc. Some barriers are not important, some barriers are more important. And therefore some benchmarks are more important or less important. So it's about improvement tool, but also making visible. So embrace diversity, I will say. So these are some examples. On the OpenUpEd website you can find the self-assessment tool. You can have the checklist of all 32 and then you can look at the formulation of a benchmark and say for yourself, is my MOOC contributing to that or not? And how can I improve that? For example, benchmark number 10 is very much related to online courses, or even a course. A course should have intended learning outcomes, should be reviewed regularly, updated, improved for user feedback and stakeholders. So therefore we say a MOOC should be regularly reviewed. There should be quality mechanisms there to improve the MOOC, etc. And then we ask the institution itself, are you complying with this benchmark? Yes. Why? Proof. Or not completely. Why not? Etc. And then perhaps have a roadmap to improve that. So that we say also in the perception, a MOOC is a regular course and therefore it has quality dimensions on that. Number 11, institutions specify an open license for MOOC components. So we say there's a legal barrier and we want MOOCs as much as possible that the participants can reuse the material for their own purpose. That can be business, commercial, or learning purposes, whatever. It doesn't mean that your institution has to comply to this criteria of this benchmark. We only want to know, are you doing this? Does it apply to your MOOCs? And if not, why not? You can have legal reasons, fairly valid reasons not to do that. But one of the barriers is related to legal barriers and removing the legal aspects so that other people can reuse it. This one on course delivery is also related to some kind of regular course dimension. So the MOOC platform itself is not only to provide the MOOC in the video, but also that it's related to the educational model chosen in the course itself. So if you have a project-based educational model and you have a MOOC with a lot of project teams and a project-based didactical approach, the platform should support those tools and those educational model. So there's some kind of check on that.
Are there any preferences regarding the platforms?
No.
No.
So even we say you can be OpenUpEd partner if your MOOC is in Coursera, but there is a contract with Coursera that might exclude both partnership. But we say it doesn't matter what platform you have. You see that most of the OpenUpEd partners do have their own platform or are in Future Learn, for example, at Open University UK. So it depends. You can have your own platform. You can be with one of the big platform providers in the US. But then you have to check their contract if you can be partner of OpenUpEd or not. Because they perhaps say it's excluded for that reason. So, do we need another discussion on another one? This on the staff level. Staff who write and deliver the course has the skills and experience. Again, if you offer a normal course and you have an accreditation commission coming by, is the staff of the skilled to write the course and deliver the course itself. So there's a mixture between benchmarks that are related to the barriers and a mixture of criteria that you find in all regular online courses. So therefore I mentioned there's a relation between the excellence label and this label, but with some rephrasement, etc. So in the end you have 32 benchmarks, and the quick scan is just to make yourself saying, okay, how well are we doing on those benchmarks and how well are we contributing to the features itself. So therefore you can say that in the interactivity in a course itself. It's related to that's learner-centered approach, independent learning, and media interactive support. You can say, okay, we are contributing those features, etc. So it's about a check for yourself. So it's not a self-assessment. In your self-assessment, you will say, we are focusing on those benchmarks, those are important, and you provide some proof. And then two people, some experts come to review your institution and your MOOCs.
So if my institution has the unique accreditation,
Yeah.
which means that we can easily join the OpenUpEd, or do we have to go to this quality check again?
You have to go to the OpenUpEd quality label. And I think, I don't know if the unique steps by heart, but the steps with OpenUpEd is then you have your self-assessment on those benchmarks, but you can copy and paste most of them from what you provided for the unique label. Although some dimensions are related to the barriers and to MOOCs, etc. So you have to provide that they apply to MOOCs and not only to your institution or your offering of online courses. And then there is a review with two persons looking at your self-assessment and your proof, and they will define together what's important for your institution as a roadmap. So it's again not providing a label you apply for all the criteria as a benchmark, as a criteria. No, it's about where are you standing, what's important for you as an institution, and what's your roadmap to opening up education even more. So there are differences, and yeah, you have to apply again for the review mechanisms, but I think some of them can be copied, but then it has to apply to MOOCs. Yeah.
All I'm going to say, just to give an idea, just of, let's say, the list of ones on course level on the screen.
Yeah.
Probably all of them are unique with the exception of the open license.
Yeah.
So there's very big similarities, but I mean, unique doesn't accredit openness, so obviously there have to be some differences.
Yeah. And again, this unique and e-excellence is for all regular online courses, and here you have the perception of MOOCs. Yeah. And have to provide some evidence there. We are momentarily revising the label based on the experience of the last 1.5 years. So one example is that we try to avoid the word students, because in MOOCs you don't talk about students but about participants. And we are rephrasing some examples of the criteria to make it more visible, etc. Yes, I will skip this one. Again, this is an example of assessment. But then the comments are different because it's not assessment like in a regular course. So you have the digital badges as an example. And this is a text that will give you an example of if you provide badges, what kind of criteria of what are we looking for. In the complete publication, you have the this one as a quick scan. Then there are additional notes on the OpenUpEd label, and so most of the time they also refer to parts of the e-excellence label. So the background information is there. So this is part of the self-assessment form. If you had to benchmark number 15, then you have to provide some evidence that you apply that benchmark to MOOCs, or say it's not important for us because blah blah blah, and then also say how this support contribute to one of the features of OpenUpEd. And then you can say it's partly achieved or largely achieved, and then make a discussion with the review team on your roadmap, if it's important and how you want to improve that. So this is kind of the action plan, the roadmap for yourself. What's the planned action, the times and responsibility, etc. So again, it's a label that will be renewed every 3 years, and then the action plan roadmap is to look at what's improved, what's tackled, etc. And it's published in Inkwell, the label itself, and the discussion on that. So that was a quick overview of the OpenUpEd label. I think it's a lot of things to think about, but so again,
comments or questions? I think we're on zero level energy here.
yeah.
And John,
There's some nice weather now, and then
One question is about protection of, let's say, intellectual property of the authors. This is all open. In a way, do you protect a MOOC as a property of the one who made it, or it's completely open, or how somebody else reuses that?
yeah. So that's about open licensing. If you have open licensing, you can have many different licenses. So, for example, if you have the Creative Commons license, then you have Creative Commons license CC BY NC, for example. CC BY, we take the Creative Commons license. BY, they have to, if they reuse it, they have to refer to you as the person who made it. And NC means non-commercial. So if there are commercial activities, they have to contact you, etc., etc. So then the open license, you can choose this for yourself. You can also have CC BY, so then can have commercial use, etc. What we're only saying in this criteria, do you have an open licensing policy on your MOOCs? And so, what's your open licensing policy, or why don't you have an open licensing policy? And then you're saying, how is my professor protector of my reputation? Is by choosing the right license. And then there's a difference between saying the license non-commercial, or you need to refer by, there's the reference, and how to check if people are doing that. But that's a different discourse. Yeah. So to summarize, OpenUpEd makes a decision that MOOCs are part of an of institutional offering and should have the same dimension as a regular course, but with some different dimensions as a regular course. If you are choosing a MOOC completely different, more informal or non-formal, then don't apply that label. Just look at it and have some criteria that might be relevant for you, but not applying for partnerships, etc. More questions, general questions on, because I think that we did this today, we have a lot of discussion on open education and MOOCs, and I think not that many on online education and the quality dimensions at a regular offering, but yeah.
I think I like the Anthony's issues for Slovenia, I think. So if you agree, I'm going to post that on the website as the results of the workshop. Is that okay? Because I think those were kind of, I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when I was listening today to all these presentations that I see some very contradictory developments in future. As lately with Bologna process or all these initiatives of European Commission to make as smooth as possible the mobility of students and then graduates in Europe and so on. Whenever we want to open up, make more flexible, more accessible and so on the education, we at the same time and that implies that we would only secure the minimum standards which the broad spectrum of institutions could fulfill. Then on the other hand, we immediately have just the opposite developments, that institutions and some institutions try to protect their reputation with even increasing the level of demands that they pose to one another. They are forming such excellence networks. We have the explosion of ranking methodologies, things like that. Nobody trusts anybody anymore because everything is becoming too flexible and too open. And on paper, of course, you exchange students, but then you see that you can't, your institution can't sign a learning agreement with just any foreign institution because some don't want to send their students to your institution, so no way you would have an Erasmus learning contract with them, and so on and so on. And credential evaluators know it, how difficult it became after the Bologna process to get your qualification recognized. And it really goes into the direction that Mr. Camilleri said, that the quality of qualifications is becoming important, which is not the intention of such initiatives in the beginning. On the contrary, they should open up and be democratic as much as possible. As a reaction, we get more of the opposite. And I can see this happening already.
Therefore, we are stressing that it's a development tool and not using it. And therefore, it's But indeed, there are contradictional things happening in higher education. If you again focus on MOOCs, only the institutions who have the reputation and have the money to provide courses for free, and they have the reputation and they're high in the rank list, they are in MOOCs. Because they are high on the rank list, they get a lot of attention and marketing, it supports their branding, and they have the money to do that. What about the small universities? You are not in the top 100 of the Shanghai Index. So,
I'd just like to comment on this as well. The Bologna process, in a way, is a very different set of developments. And the Bologna process started out as a vision from a set of countries to a very top-down process. Through a very, let's build a treaty, let's imagine what Europe can be, and trickle it down all the way through the education system. What we're seeing with the set of trends around open and flexible education is that it's coming exactly the opposite way. This is coming from grassroots level, it's coming from, sometimes not even from within the education sector itself. Let's remember that all this move started partially in education and partially in the private sector. And what we're seeing is, there's a word we like to use in innovation, we say we're seeing disruption. And the interesting thing when you disrupt things is that you really have no idea what's going to happen. But technology has disrupted every industry that's started. And I think we'll see legislation catching up to this innovation probably about 10 to 15 years after the innovation happens. Because government's job is to do legislation properly, and good legislation just plain takes time. And you can't legislate every innovation the second it comes out of the door. So, I mean, one of the unfortunate things is that while you're experimenting, you're going to make mistakes. But I don't think we're in any danger of over-regulation at the moment because of the grassroots nature. I think the bigger challenge we are facing in some countries with legislation is that the legislation that already exists for traditional education sometimes is blocking entire avenues for the new forms of education. The example I gave from ECTS before was one of them. Some countries actually still have quality assurance schemes that specify a certain amount of physical space per student. And that's a bit of a barrier to e-learning, and so on and so forth. So actually I think the main barriers from the legislation we have already, rather than from stuff governments are dreaming up, at least at the moment. It may become an issue in 50 years from now, but that would be my characterization of it.
Well, I can tell you that based on the experience of creating the Slovenian national qualifications framework, we had a lot of discussions how to regulate and formalize the informal and non-formal learning. How to bring in into the framework, how to bring in different forms of certificates that you get in informal and non-formal settings, and it's very difficult. And this could be a barrier. This could be a barrier to the whole area. I can tell you. Who is checking this quality? Because everything is fine as long as a participant, not a student, okay, a participant is enjoying learning in an informal environment. But at the end of the day, when such a participant wants a formal recognition of his or her achievements, which would mean something in the labor market or wherever, that's a problem. And this procedure of certifying how much somebody has learned in a non-formal, informal environment is very demanding. It's very demanding, and that's why we are putting so much emphasis on the quality of the operation.
Just one solution from another. I'm not saying this is the ideal, but sometimes, let's say, it's just a matter of choosing not to regulate and saying so. So, for example, in the entire market of herbal products in a lot of countries, you just have a disclaimer that, listen, this is not a tested medicine, this cannot be recommended, and it has to be put on in every time. A very simple solution would be, you know what, you can offer any type of qualification you want, but you have to include a disclaimer, this is not matched to qualification framework and we cannot guarantee recognition, full stop. You have transparency. I'm not saying this is the ideal solution by all means, but the solution is not always necessarily saying, listen, we have to regulate everything and put everything under a very deliberate quality system. Sometimes it's just a matter of making obvious what is under the system and what isn't, and then letting people choose which they want to use.
Yeah. But there's a difference between regulation on the master program and a bachelor program than on a course level. And then on a course level you have a discussion on informal, formal aspects. And then if you choose to have courses that are non-formal and have the opportunity to have a connection to a course on a master, then it can become blurry. Yeah. Okay, thank you all for listening to many presentations from me and Antoni. Antoni.
So the next step is me sending you an email with the evaluation form.
Yeah.
And the details of the day, and then